Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I am one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and I'm very excited about the guest I have on today. It's his first time on the podcast, and we're going to talk about the current Kickstarter campaign for Scattered Futures. We're probably going to talk about some other stuff as well, but please welcome to the podcast, Ben Crane. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, I really appreciate it. I know you started like doing some stuff with Comic Book Yeti, and you had reached out to me, and for you have Scattered Futures, which is on Kickstarter right now. It's um a sci-fi anthology. The stories you have written, you've worked with three different artists on these three stories. Um, I I really enjoyed all of them. I really kind of like the take. I love anthologies. I'm a huge fan. Like I like getting to see like a little bit of a mix of everything. I like the different art styles, and plus, like some of the artists that you've worked with, I'm familiar with. Like Sierra Barnes, Hans Vogel is Dead is fantastic.
Mhm, mhm.
Sierra's great. And yeah, the second I had it up so I wouldn't not forget anybody's name. Yeah. The second one, Delivery, was illustrated and lettered by Jenny Fleming.
Yep.
And yeah,
Martin
then
Lorbiecki is the third.
yeah, folks might know him, I guess, online as Merton, Mertyn, but yeah,
Mhm.
Cycles. And I really liked it. And um so we have three different stories, all in the realm of sci-fi, and all very much with kind of I'll say like a hopeful bent in terms
Yeah.
of what Scattered Futures is. So why don't you just tell listeners? We don't have to get into the details of the story, but I'd like to just start with um, what what was the impetus to kind of write like these three stories in particular?
Uh, so I wrote all 3 of these over the summer, this past summer, and, I live in Los Angeles, and, this summer in Los Angeles was a kind of terrifying time. Um, we had ICE deployed here very, very heavily. They're still here now. Um, but the National Guard was called out. We had uh, troops in our streets, and um, it was a very, very hard time just to kind of be a person in this city and to try to maintain hope that this would end and that there was something better coming, and that the work of trying to build that something better was valuable, was worthwhile, that it would actually lead to improvements. And I was feeling, incredibly depressed, incredibly pessimistic, and really struggling to do anything. And what I realized was that's the point. Like, that's the goal of action like that, is to inspire that pessimism, to inspire that nihilism. That nihilism is an inherently conservative, inherently regressive impulse. Um, it's this voice that tells you, "Don't bother fighting because nothing can get better." And, I was falling victim to that, and I was losing my motivation, and I needed something to remind me that kindness is possible, that hope is possible, that it's not gonna be a singular action that changes everything and makes the world better. It's gonna be this slow accumulation of 1,000 small acts of grace and acts of empathy. And I wanted to write a I wanted to write something that expressed that found the beauty in the quiet and everyday and ordinary acts of compassion that can build towards something larger. And that started with Cycles was the first of the 3 stories in Scattered Futures that I wrote. And I wrote that with Martin in mind for the art. I knew his art already. I'm a huge, huge fan of his. He has this beautiful, like French cartoon and anime inspired style that I absolutely love. And I wrote that story for him, and then I had this 9-page comic, and I had this idea I wanted to explore of small acts of kindness in a world that doesn't really give space for kindness. But 9 pages is not enough to do anything with. But that story was finished. Like, I had done everything I wanted to do with those characters and with that space, and I didn't wanna try and stretch it out into something that it didn't, um, that would have been inappropriate for it. I didn't wanna just add 12 pages of filler.
Okay.
And, so I sat down and I wrote 2 more 9-page stories that were related only in that theme of kindness and community and optimism in a harsh world. And I have been a fan of both Sierra's and Jenny's for a long time. And I did not write those stories with them in mind, but as I was looking at artists for each of them, as soon as the idea of those 2, popped into my head, I just knew like, "Oh, yes, obviously it has to be them." And, they both responded really positively to the idea, and now we have this book that, honestly, as I was putting it together, I had no idea if anybody was gonna be interested in this. It's just 3 quiet stories where nothing really dramatic happens. There's no huge crises that need to be solved. And, like, I can't go to a publisher and say, "Hey, do you wanna buy these 3 short stories?" The pitch is sometimes people are nice, and that can be a good thing. Uh,
Yes. It it's our our future, but what if everyone was kind? Yeah.
yeah, like, the world is still awful. These people are still living underneath systems that are built from the ground up to grind them down and make
Yeah.
connection impossible, make support impossible. But they
Yeah.
find a way to connect anyways.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, that pitch is not thrilling. No one's gonna be knocking down my door to throw a huge advance at me. So, it's on Kickstarter because that's what you do with books that you're not quite sure what else to do with, and I've been absolutely blown away by the response to this. We funded in our first 24 hours. I now need to come up with stretch goals. I had none
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
mind because I did not think we were ever gonna get close to that. And, yeah, I've been overwhelmingly delighted by how many people have reached out just seeing the Kickstarter page and said, "Yeah, this is something that I need in my life right now." And it's been really, really wonderful to see that and to see other people getting out of these stories the same thing that I did.
Yeah, I mean, that is awesome. I mean, you make a good point. You talk about what things were like this summer in Los Angeles, and we've seen it played out since the summer in other places across the country. And yeah, the point of any government that turns towards authoritarianism or even fascism, um, is to put down any type of resistance and to make the
Mhm.
population feel like it's not worth it, it's not possible. I mean, authoritarianism, is a system of government. They just want everyone to do what it is they say. They want to have like their sway of things. Fascism, they want everyone to not just do what they say, but also to be converted to think like them. They want,
Mhm.
so it's a little, when I use those two terms, I think they are different. But regardless, the use of things that we haven't seen in this country in quite some time, like not just government agents, but National Guard, soldiers, like, in the streets, like, using the soldiers to police, whether or not it was in Minneapolis or Los Angeles or Washington, DC, and, yeah, the point of that is to inspire people to not put up any type of resistance to what is taking place, and that constant stream of news can be wearing and taxing and depressing and inspire feelings of hopelessness. Feeling like that and wanting to create something from it and then finding the kind of strength and the ability to do it. And you're right what you said. You have created three kind of science fiction based, there's still those elements of science fiction, but you've created three quiet stories about like deeply moving, empathetic moments, and I don't know, like, I read the advance that you sent me, and I felt good. I felt like, that's I wanna see more of that. I wanna see more of that in the world. I wanna see more of that in the things that I read and consume, and, yeah, you worked with 3, like, wonderful artists and creative teams, but I also do think, though, that, um you know, in terms of like a shared world, like this is something that the things that you've created here that you could, expand upon or do another scattered futures and see other systems and tackle other issues and show other moments of kindness and folks overcoming it. I really enjoyed it. I really thought these were three really well told, well put together, visually interesting stories.
Well, thank you so much. It's really meaningful to hear. I truly appreciate it. And yeah, I if there's the opportunity to tell more of these short little tales of people finding each other in this awful future, then yeah, I'm not opposed to that. We'll see how this one goes first though.
Yeah. So I, I want to talk a little bit about in terms of your, overall career. Um,
Yeah.
so because at least what I read, you've worked in I think the film and or TV industry. Um,
Yes.
so did you do that and then come to comics, or were you working in like film and TV and doing comics at the same time? Like I'm kind of curious, like what brought you to comics?
Yeah, so there was a tiny period of overlap, but for the most part, it's two sort of distinct periods in my life. Um, I will fully admit I came late in life to even reading comics.
Look,
Um, I
you don't have to feel bad about that. Like on this show, we don't, just so you know, and listeners, I've said it before. I haven't said it in a while though, so I'll say it again. We don't gatekeep. Um, you could have read from the time you were like first knew how to read. You could have picked up your first comic yesterday, Ben, and we're just happy to have you. So
I
you don't
appreciate
don't
that.
don't feel bad about it. No, go ahead. Go
I
ahead. You continue.
No, I just wanna, like, flag that comics is the most supportive and friendly community I have ever had the joy of being a part of. Um, Everyone is here because we truly love the art form, and it's just been really, really wonderful to get to know this world. Um, but I didn't really start reading comics seriously until college. Um, I've never been a big superhero fan. I appreciate what the genre can do. I appreciate that genre, it probably doesn't encompass the scope of it at this point. It's like comics are not a genre, comics are a medium.
Yeah, medium, sure.
Superhero stories can do so many things.
Oh, yeah.
But the basic, superhero character is not the most compelling to me. And so I always just thought, "Oh, comics are superhero stories. I'm not terribly interested in superhero stories, so I'm not really gonna pay attention to comics." And then in college, I I started reading, Greg Rucka's, For Queen and Country series,
Oh, okay.
and, it's like, "Oh, oh, wow. I've been just dismissing all of this out of hand for no reason." And, so I started reading, every comic I could get my hands on. But I never pursued it creatively. I studied film and literature in college with the intention of going into film and writing for film. And then after college, I wound up, on a producer development track in the film industry, and I ran development for a producer by the name of Mace Neufeld for, about a dozen years, and
Oh, okay.
I
So Mace, just so listeners know, Mace Neufeld produced a lot of the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan films,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, I started working for him while he was working on the Chris Pine, Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit movie.
Okay.
And, uh, so I did a tiny bit of work on that. I did a little bit of work on the Jack Ryan TV show that Amazon does,
Yeah, the John
and
Krasinski led one.
yeah, yeah. And I also got to work on the, Denzel Washington, The Equalizer series.
Good,
And,
great. Those are I on a side note, I hadn't gotten to see them when they came out, but I watched them on a plane going to Ireland, and, uh, they were fantastic. I wished when I got done, I wished I'd seen them in the theater. They were they were
they're
really
fun.
great.
They're fun movies.
Yeah,
I'm glad that
100%.
people enjoyed them. Um, and I love development, it turns out. I really, really liked that job, which was essentially I would find scripts or books or stories that were interesting that could be a really great movie, but that weren't quite there yet. And then I would work with the people who made them to sort of get them that last little bit to something which is really special and really fantastic. And then I
Cool.
would hand it off to Mace, who was just a genius at sort of putting things together and finding exactly the right people for everything. And he went and did his magic. Uh, so I worked for him for about a dozen years. And then in 2018, um, my partner and I started talking about maybe doing something together. My partner is an illustrator, and they had a sort of a quiet period in their work schedule. And I had recently met someone at Skybound who was very encouraging and sort of showed me how to put a comic pitch together. And I met the two guys who created the Kill Shakespeare comic book series. That's
Oh, okay.
was it IDW way back in the day. And they sort of were very, very helpful and sent me a bunch of sample pitches and a bunch of a bunch of scripts and just sort of talked me through how you do a comic. And I thought, I've worked in film for 12 years. I know visual storytelling. This is going to be really simple. It's the same thing. It's not. They are wildly different media. And so I had a very, very steep learning curve to figure out how comics work and to sort of unlearn all the things about film that I had learned and relearn how comics work. But I did, and I wrote some stuff which was terrible and will never see the light of day. And then eventually I put together something which I thought was kind of decent, and my partner did the illustrations for it, and that wound up being Cosmic Cadets, which is a middle grade graphic novel that we sold to Top Shelf.
Awesome.
And we just had book 2 in that series come out in December. And so I sold that, and in the middle of that whole process was COVID, and the film industry shut down.
Mhm.
And so I had no film work, and I decided to write a novel because I wasn't doing enough things. And I sold that novel, and uh, the same day that I got an offer of representation for my writing, I got a call from Mace's wife to let me know that he had passed away.
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
And
sorry. I'm sorry.
I I appreciate it. It was not unexpected, but it's still I'd worked for the man for 12 years. I knew
Oh,
him
yeah.
well, and uh it was a wild whiplash of a day when that happened. Um but the film industry was still shut down at that point. The idea of going out and trying to find another development job when nobody is working, and I had just lost this man who had, been my mentor, who had taught me how to put a movie together. Uh, that was more than I was emotionally ready to handle at that time. And we had sold Cosmic Cadets. I had representation for my novel. Um, and I decided to sort of take that as a sign from the universe to pivot. And so I've been working in comics and prose since then, and just genuinely loving it. I as I said, comics is the friendliest community I've ever been a part of. It's just been a delight every day to get to tell stories with people.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's been the most welcoming of places. I'm curious, in terms of going from film development and knowing visual storytelling and then going to comics, and you said it was like a steep learning curve. I'm curious, like, what was the steepest part of that curve that you had to learn? Was it so I mean, I'm just curious, was it something in terms of, like, putting a comic together, like, putting a pitch together? Was it something about the industry? Was it something just, maybe something about the writing of it itself? W what was yeah,
It's
what was the part that was the steepest?
it's the fact that so both comics and film are visual storytelling media. They both, you have an image that tells a story. And it seems incredibly almost pat and oversimplistic to point this out, but movies, it turns out, actually move, and comics don't.
No.
And
Yeah.
it's a pretty big difference. The great German filmmaker Wim Wenders, when someone asked him, how do movies work, his response was, motion is emotion. That it is the movement on the screen that conveys the emotion of what's what's going on. And in film, there are things which are incredibly easy to convey with, you an eye movement, with just a quick cut, with a really simple gesture that in comics are impossible to show without devoting 6 panels to a whole sequence.
Oh, sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
but there are so many things that comics can do that film can't. Other than the fact that they both use pictures, there's very, very little overlap in the actual tools that they use to convey story, to convey emotion, and to bring the audience into the world that they're trying to build. Movies, the filmmaker has absolute control over the pacing of how the audience consumes the story, and how the audience
Sure.
interacts with the story. You have sound, which can wildly influence our experience of a narrative. You
Yeah.
have control over where the audience's eyes move. Um, you have control over so many things.
Right.
And in comics, you can't keep the reader from looking to the next page. The reader's
Yeah.
eyes are gonna go where the reader's eyes are gonna go. You
Right. And
can't
you have to
control.
figure all of that out with
Mhm.
either through your paneling. It's just a lot harder, it seems. Like pacing is tougher, like using special effects or sound effects in terms
Mhm.
of on the page is tougher. I think the biggest thing when I've never made a film. I love film. I've never made one, but I always think when I first started to get into writing comics, it's like, man, it would be so much easier to convey emotion if like there was a soundtrack. Like
Yeah,
there's so much movies too with music and sound that you
yeah.
don't have in comics.
Wait, so here's the thing that comics have. This was the greatest revelation to me when I realized page turns, which are such a simple thing, but there is no equivalent to the page turn in a film. A page turn is this moment when the reader has to pause, where they have to reset, and you have this magical physical moment where they're opening a treasure chest and finding, what's beyond the next page, what's underneath this covering. Where the page that they've just read turns from the piece of the story that they're reading right now to a shield which is obscuring the next piece of the story that they want to read. And the
Right.
power of that moment of anticipation and revelation is extraordinary. And you just can't do that in a movie. You can cut to black and then just have the screen be blank for 3 seconds and force the audience to sit there and be bored, but the page turn, the reader is an active participant in that revelation of the next page, and it's wonderful, and it is my favorite tool to use when I'm writing. If I'm not putting every page turn to use, then I go back and I redo the entire script until every page turn is a moment of anticipation.
Yeah. I mean that is the thing. Like writing towards the page turn. I actually heard someone talking the other day about like not writing to the page turn, and I'm like, I understand there's certain times to maybe to not do it. But yeah, that tool to be able to do that. And it is a little bit of a different skill because you almost have to work backwards, I think. Like you figure the moment or the panel that you want to be right before the next one, the page turn that's going to
Mhm.
connect the two. And then you have to kind of work it out in terms of the pacing. And then sometimes once the artist gets a hold of it, that it changes if they add a panel or take one away. Like that's also what I love though, the collaboration between
Yeah.
writer and artist, because I am not an artist. So like
Oh, me neither.
that yeah, that collaboration I love. One of the things, the other things I wanted to ask you, because when you talk about the film development work that you did, and at least the films that you had mentioned are all they're good films, action films, but with Cosmic Cadets and with Scattered Futures, and you have another anthology, Systemic. It's all seems, science fiction, like those types of stories. So, what does that influence, for you in terms of, because if you're telling quiet stories about empathy, about kindness, about human connection in a terrible world,
Yeah.
you could do that in any genre. You could do that in horror. You could do it in fantasy. You could, why science fiction?
Uh, Science fiction was my first love. I I I started reading Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern and Isaac Asimov's Foundation series when I was in
Okay.
middle school.
Oh, yeah, middle school?
Probably
Yeah,
too young to really
yeah,
understand either of them.
reading
Uh,
Asimov in middle school will do it.
but I I I love science fiction for its ability to just come right out and say, this is a metaphor for our world. To just put it right on the face. There's no subtlety. There's no dancing around the fact. It's we're talking about now, and we're going to talk about now with symbols because that's a simpler way of understanding it. And it's a way
Mhm,
to hone in on something specific. Um, but it's very, very direct about the fact that if you're writing science fiction about the future, you're I don't want to say you're doing something wrong. Everyone finds their own way to art. You're doing science fiction in a way that isn't interesting to me. It might be interesting to you,
okay.
but science fiction for me is a genre about examining now by heightening and amplifying the things that we want to examine. Um, and I just constantly find myself drawn back to speculative fiction of all kinds, whether it's science fiction or fantasy or science fantasy. Um, I love I love speculative fiction. I love genre fiction in general. My prose work is mostly in the like crime noir thriller space.
Mhm.
Uh, but even that, like you said, you can tell stories about hope in any genre. Um, the crime thrillers that I write, they're stories where people punch each other and shoot each other and people die and it's rough and uh, hard to live in that world. But ultimately, they're stories still about empathy. They're stories about people finding each other and lifting each other up. Um, because those are the stories that I want to have more of in my life. And and so they're the stories that I tell. And my comics work happens to have mostly been science fiction. Um, because I love science fiction. My film work was in, big budget spy thrillers,
Yeah,
because that's what Mace did. Um,
yeah.
that's what he was known for.
To kind of turn back a little bit to Scattered Futures, and I don't want to like give anything away. I find it interesting in terms of the order you wrote them, that you had written cycles first, and it kind of, at least in the lineup in terms of how it's put together in the PDF you sent me, cycles is last. It kind of anchors
Yeah.
everything. Um, Yeah, I when I got into it, and the first one, like Legitimate Salvage, there's a ton of things that are done in Legitimate Salvage that I really like. Because there's some, uh, darker things that are hinted at in what's going on in legitimate salvage, and it's never fully shown, um, which I think is kind of more of like a powerful moment that we see this thing experience between these two characters, like communicating to each other, um, as the main one goes through the ship that they're salvaging, which we find out in the beginning. I thought, like, that first story and leading with it, it was, uh, eh I was surprised at how emotional I was reading it. It just seemed like what happens in the story, and listeners, when you back Scattered Futures, you'll find out, it 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 was, like, there's a couple of things that, because Sierra Barnes did that one,
Yeah.
there's a couple of
Yeah.
things that Sierra does really well, that are put on full effect here between the two of you. Because when you get to legitimate salvage, there's something happens in this ship that they're salvaging, and um, the the facial acting of the last, like, I think it's the last third panel, maybe before the end. I'll just say it that way. It conveys such a moment of apprehension, and such a moment of what do I do next? It just, it's one of the things that I just love about comics, that that you just have this, moment frozen in time in this panel. And yeah, I was really moved by that first story. I was like, oh, you know oh, it's three stories about hope. It's science fiction. This sounds nuts. I read this story and I was like, oh, this is like on another level. This is way deeper than I thought it was going to be. And it was
Well,
such a sweet story. And then the delivery, the second one, was just great. This idea of people in this situation and coming together, and there's like, delivery is another story that just has layers. Like, you're talking about not just an act of kindness or a moment of empathy. Like, there's elements of, delivery, which are about, you know, what am I doing right now? And am I ever going to see the you know, the
yeah,
results or the fruits of the work I'm doing? I mean, that story
delivery
was
for me
wonderful.
thank you. Delivery for me is about the work of combating climate change. It's which is going to be a generational effort. And
Yeah.
the things that we do now, we're not gonna we're not gonna see the result of that. Whether we solve it or not, um, you and I aren't gonna know.
You're right.
But we have to do the work anyways.
Yeah.
And that's a terrifying concept.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It
that
is.
that that was
Eh,
delivery.
Yeah, but I didn't feel, talking about some of those things, like the reality of it. And they're hard concepts sometimes to get, because we live on this planet and that's all we've ever known. And the idea of it might not be there one day, or
Mhm.
we need to do something now. And humans are, all of us, every human, I mean, 99.99% of humans are really interested in, like, that animal instinct of taking care of, like, right now. And
Yeah.
the idea that we're going to do something and make major changes, and we will never see the effects of it. One, we're not gonna know whether or not it worked, but we have to do it to ensure the future, of, the human race. Like, those are big things that are almost impossible to wrap your head around. And I love attitude of, is it Kana, the main character of
Yeah. Yeah.
Delivery. And even though those are really heavy topics and can, be a bit of a bummer to think about, that's an understatement to think about the effects of climate change in the planet. I felt, I don't know, I felt really hopeful. I did, like, at the end of it, like, it had the desired effect. I felt like, yeah, it's just it's the it's the it's the better path, you know? And I really
Thank
loved
you.
how it kind of told that story. And yeah, I hope listeners check it out and read it. And if they, even if they don't get the same thing I got out of it, that they get something out of it. There's a couple of very sweet moments in it. Yeah, these are all very, like, three really well told, um, well drawn, well executed stories. And
Well, thank you so much.
yeah. So what, so we have Scattered Futures now, which,
Hmm.
we're gonna get this out, and listeners, you'll have until, I think, April 4th or
April
5th. It
4th,
says
I
April,
believe.
yeah, it says like Sunday, April 5th at 12 a.m. So I'm not sure what that means. So we'll just, because it's like right on the line. So we'll say April
Let's say
4th.
April
So
4th. Yeah.
April 4th. So right before Easter, if you celebrate Easter. Because I think April 5th is Easter. So you have until Saturday, April 4th to check out the Kickstarter, to back the Kickstarter. And is there anything else you want listeners to know? Like, I'll put links in the show notes to the Kickstarter. I'll put them there to your website. I'll put a link to Cosmic Cadets from Top Shelf. I love Top Shelf stuff. They just have made some really great books, especially in the all ages and middle grade realm. And so I'll put a link to that. But is there anything else that you want listeners to know about, where they can find you, or for them to check out?
If you want to find me online, Blue Sky is where I'm most active of the social media sites.
Okay.
My Blue Sky handle is just my website, bencranewrites.com. Um, all of my other books are available as add-ons in the Kickstarter campaign. So
Nice.
if I mentioned anything that sounded interesting to people, they can get it all there. And I will get you a link with a secret reward tier for your listeners, that will
Awesome.
get them the copy of the book with a personal note from me at the early bird price, regardless of when they back.
Fantastic. And yeah, well, that's great. And then I know that you had mentioned before, I think coming out later in the year is, you've edited Systemic, like Volume 1, and that's going to come out later.
So Systemic Volume 1 is out now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and yeah, we released that in January. Um, if people like collections of short science fiction stories, that's my other collection of short science fiction stories. It's 7 short comics about people trapped in the places where cultural, economic, and governmental forces meet and grind together.
And
Uh,
is that still available for folks to get?
yeah. So that was published by Studio 12/7, and people can get it directly from them. And I also have it as an available add-on on this campaign.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I was looking at it on, like, the information about it on the website. But yeah, some of the folks that contributed to it: Stephanie Williams, Norm Harper, Richard Fairgray, Simon Burks, Val Halverson, which are some of my favorite folks. Norm Harper did, I think it was Norm Harper did a comic, Iron Barge, which was
Yeah.
anthropomorphic animals. I loved Iron Barge. I mean, Stephanie Williams, who right now is doing Street Sharks. Richard Fairgray has put out some, like, amazing stuff. Richard's, like, such a character.
He is
I
one
ran
of a
into
kind.
Richard. Absolutely. I ran into Richard at Baltimore Comic Con, and he had, like, one of the most ridiculous shirts on I had ever seen. But it was just fantastic. And I've read his stuff before. He's amazing. Simon Burks is great. Val Halverson. I've had Val on the podcast before. I've had Val and Justin Richards to talk about Finger Guns and to talk about The
Mhm.
Slasher's Apprentice, which was their most recent Man Cave series. So yeah, all those folks are tremendous. Just some of my favorite people that I've talked to or read their comics. So yeah, that sounds amazing. But we'll put links to everything so folks can pick it up. And yeah, if it sounds interesting to you, check it out. Like just click the link, listeners. Check out the Kickstarter. Check out Systemic. Check out Cosmic Cadets. And Ben, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you making some time on a Friday the 13th to chat with me. And if as we record this, yeah, it is Friday the 13th. So I hope you have a great weekend. And if you celebrate St. Patrick's Day, I hope you enjoy that. I'm gonna have a Guinness, which is my usual St. Patrick's Day tradition. So there you go.
I thank you so much for having me on. I have acid reflux, which flares up if I have anything carbonated, and
Oh
it is
no.
the great tragedy of my life that if I have a drop of carbonation, I will be unable to speak for 2 weeks afterwards as my body
Yeah,
tries to digest my vocal cords.
that's no good.
Uh,
That's no good. Well, I'll have a Guinness for you then, Ben.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I don't think you're Irish. I have no idea. But
Mostly Eastern European Jewish, but
okay.
there could be some Irish in there. Who knows?
You, who knows? I don't know. I've been told all my life that we are part Irish, and I don't actually think it's true. I think it's just something that my mom's side of the family said. So I I haven't done the 23andMe and given them my DNA to find out exactly what parts of the world my ancestors come from. But
Well, I won't tell anyone if you don't.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, listeners. Rate and review us and do all those things that they tell you to do about podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well. We have a YouTube channel. We do put sometimes the videos on YouTube. So if you like to get your shows that way, you can check us out on YouTube, and you can watch me stress blink through 45 minutes because I don't know, it's just a tick that I've developed in the 20 years that I've been an attorney. It's a real bummer, but if you want to see it, you can on YouTube. And yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky. I do have a TikTok. I sometimes post about the comics I'm reading. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Please check out Scattered Futures. The stories really are wonderful. I really think you're going to get something out of it. And check out Ben's other work. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Good night, and I'll see you next time.